I always believed that family comes first, that no matter what happened, the people who shared your blood would have your back, and for most of my life, I held on to that belief like a shield. It protected me from the uglier parts of the world, from the betrayals I thought only strangers were capable of. But when the person who destroys your life wears the same last name as you, when it's your own brother smiling at you across the dinner table while secretly stabbing you in the back, that shield doesn't just break, it shatters. My name's Anthony, and this story isn't easy for me to tell, because it isn't just about identity theft, it's about something deeper. It's about watching someone you once idolized turn into a stranger. It's about trust being used as a weapon, and it all started with a phone call. Just a routine, annoying little phone call from a bank I didn't recognize, asking if I planned to make a payment on a loan I never took out. I laughed at first, assuming it was some kind of mistake, but it wasn't. That phone call opened the floodgates. Within days, I was getting notifications about maxed-out credit cards I'd never applied for, emails about overdue bills from accounts I didn't even know existed, and alerts from collections agencies demanding payments for loans that weren't mine. My credit score, which had been pristine, was nose-diving fast. It was like watching your house catch fire and realizing you're locked inside. I didn't understand how it could have happened. I hadn't lost my wallet, hadn't clicked any suspicious links, hadn't been careless. So how did someone get enough of my information to financially destroy me? I remember sitting in my apartment, surrounded by bills with someone else's purchases on them, TVs, laptops, furniture I'd never seen, and a sinking feeling growing in my gut. Something didn't add up. This wasn't random. Whoever did this didn't just have my name. They had my social, my birthday, my address. They knew me. And the scariest part, they had been pretending to be me for months, right under my nose. I just hadn't noticed, not until the damage was done. I filed a police report, of course. I froze my credit, contacted the banks, and started what would become a months-long nightmare of proving I wasn't the one who had ruined my own financial life. It was humiliating. Explaining to strangers that no, I didn't buy that $3,000 couch. No, I didn't open an account at that shady payday lender. And all the while, I couldn't help but wonder who would do this to me. The answer came one night when I visited my parents' house. My brother Jason was there, lounging on the couch, playing with his phone like nothing was wrong. We hadn't been close in recent years. He'd always had a reckless streak, always cutting corners and chasing shortcuts, but I never imagined he'd do something like this. But then my dad asked an innocent question. "Hey Anthony, did you ever end up buying that new TV? Jason said you picked up a huge one for your place." My blood went cold. I stared at him. "What?" I asked. Jason looked up from his phone, eyes suddenly alert. "Oh yeah," he said quickly. "I thought you mentioned it," but he was lying, and I knew it. That moment, those few seconds of silence before his answer, were all I needed. My mind began to stitch the pieces together. The timeline, the knowledge of my information, the purchases, the fact that Jason had visited my apartment just a few months earlier. He had been the only one outside of my landlord who had access to my personal documents. I didn't confront him that day. I wish I had, but something inside me just froze. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I left early that night, got in my car, and drove around aimlessly for hours. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I was trying to convince myself that I was wrong, that maybe I was just paranoid. But deep down, I knew the truth, and I hated that it was even a possibility. The next day I pulled my credit report again. I went through every line, every account, and started cross-referencing the addresses, the delivery information, the phone numbers. And sure enough, some of the packages from those bogus accounts had been sent to an address I recognized, Jason's old apartment. The proof was staring me in the face. My own brother had stolen my identity. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But more than anything, I wanted to understand why. Why would he do this? Was he that desperate? Was it revenge for something I didn't even know I'd done? Or did he just see me as a convenience, a stepping stone, a means to an end? I didn't know, but I knew I couldn't let it go. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a deliberate act, a betrayal so deep it made my stomach turn. I called him. My voice was shaking. "Jason," I said, "I know what you did." There was a pause on the line. Then he laughed. laughed. "What are you talking about, man?" he said, trying to play dumb. "You've been watching too many movies." But his voice cracked at the end, and that was it for me. I hung up. I didn't have the strength to listen to his lies. I went back to the police. I updated my report. I gave them the new information, the addresses, the delivery receipts I managed to get from some of the banks, and I took it a step further. I hired a lawyer. It wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. It was about accountability. If Jason thought he could use me like a personal piggy bank and walk away scot-free, he was about to find out how wrong he was. The legal process was grueling. It's one thing to prove identity theft. It's another to prove it was done by someone you know. The emotional toll was brutal. My parents didn't believe me at first. They thought I was making it up or exaggerating. Jason wouldn't do that, they said. He's your brother. But I had the documents, the receipts, the paper trail, and eventually, even they couldn't ignore it. The day I served Jason with court papers was one of the hardest days of my life. I watched him open the envelope, his expression going from confusion to rage. "You're seriously doing this?" he barked. "You'd take your own brother to court?" I didn't say anything, I just stared at him. My jaw clenched, because yes, I would. And I was. He tried to fight it, of course. Tried to spin the narrative like I was overreacting, like I was out to destroy his life over a few mistakes. He even tried to manipulate our family, making himself the victim, crying to our parents about how I was ruining him. But I stayed focused. I didn't let his tears, or their guilt trips, stop me, because I wasn't just fighting for my credit score. I was fighting for my self-respect. The courtroom was quiet, the day our case was heard. Jason sat across from me, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Gone was the cocky swagger, the fake confidence. All that was left was a man who'd gambled with someone else's future, and lost. My lawyer laid out everything, the accounts, the purchases, the IP logs, the shipping addresses. And Jason, he had no defense, just excuses. "I was desperate," he said at one point, his voice cracking. I didn't think it would get this far. I stared at him, wondering how many people he'd said that to before, wondering how many bridges he'd burned that I didn't know about. But most of all, I wondered how he slept at night, knowing he had ruined someone who once trusted him with everything. The judge ruled in my favor. Jason was found liable for the damages and ordered to pay restitution. The bank started the process of clearing my name. Slowly, painfully, my credit began to recover. But no court order could fix what had been broken between us. That damage ran too deep. Even after the verdict, Jason tried to reach out. Letters, voicemails, even showing up at my apartment. "Let's put this behind us," he said once, standing in my doorway like nothing had happened. I shut the door in his face. Because some betrayals don't deserve second chances. Some wounds don't heal just because someone says sorry. My parents eventually came around. They apologized for doubting me, for not seeing Jason for who he really was. But even now there's a sadness in our family that never quite goes away. A fracture that was never there before. Holidays are quieter, conversations more careful, because everyone knows what happened. Even if no one says it out loud, I still have dreams about it. About walking into a store and having my card declined. About finding new accounts opened in my name. That kind of trauma doesn't just vanish, it lingers. It makes you paranoid, makes you question every email, every call, and worst of all, it makes you question the people you love. But here's what I learned. Boundaries matter, even with family, especially with family. Trust isn't a given, it's earned, and once it's broken, you have every right to protect yourself, no matter who's on the other side of that line, even if it's someone who once held your hand when you were scared of the dark. So yeah, I took my brother to court. I did what I had to do, and I don't regret it for a second. Because if you don't stand up for yourself, who will?